process work with you collaborating back and forth and completing a book in as fast as a month?
Well, when we first started writing, we lived in the same town, which was rather convenient. We lived in Lexington, Kentucky. We taught at a school called Sayre School, and we sat down and we would work at our lunch periods. We'd work after school. We'd take homework home and bring it back, and we would talk out our story. Sometimes we'd even act out our story to say, well, what should happen next? What could the kid do? And we'd kind of pretend we were the kids, and maybe even sit down at their desk and pretend what a kid might do in a certain situation. But then my husband finished his doctorate and got a job in Texas. And we thought, oh, this is it. We'll never have to write it. We'll never be able to write another book again. I can remember the tearful hugs on my front porch that this was the end of our writing career. And that was when we got the call from Scholastic saying, we want you to write 4 more books in your series.
Oh, was that early in the collaboration? Wow.
Yeah, with the 6th book. And so we said, well, we're going to have to find a way to do it long distance. So we started what we call the hot potato method of writing. We would one of us would start the story, and I kind of like to start them. So I would start a lot of them, and I would do a couple chapters, and then I would send them back to Marcia. And in those days, believe it or not, we had to fax it. And she would read it and make some suggestions or changes, which is what we did with we kind of worked as each other's editors. And she'd make some suggestions and changes, and then she'd write a couple more chapters, and she'd hot potato it back to me. So we went back and forth like that until we finished the book. And then since we were editing each other's work, oftentimes there wasn't a lot of editing for our actual editor to do, because we were kind of doing it for her. So that helped the process. And we would start by making an outline of what the story was going to be about, so that our editor could look at it and say, well, that's not going to work, or yeah, I like this. And so she would help us plot the story out with that outline, so that the process of writing would go faster. Because if we were going in the wrong direction, she could tell us right away, and we would fix it before we even started writing.
So you were doing that outline before you even hot potatoed it once?
Oh yeah. We always work from an outline, and I do when I write by myself as well.
So many questions about your process with that. We'll start with the outline. What does the outline look like? How detailed do you get? What's the typical length?
Let me see if I have one right here. Here's one for a book that comes out in 2021. This is, you can see, I don't know if you can tell, but it's just a sentence or two for each chapter. So basically, I just get a general idea of what's going to happen in that chapter. And I know some people who do a real thorough outline. I mean, their outline is almost as big as their book. And I can't do that, because I figure, well, I've already told everything I wanted to say in the outline. So I have to keep my outlines pretty brief and just give myself room to kind of play around with what happens in the story.
And then do you have a consistent word count or number of chapters? How do you know when you've got enough book?
Well, when we first wrote the Bailey School Kids book, we were writing our story, and we got to chapter 13, and we said, oh, this is perfect. A vampire book must have 13 chapters. So we always strived for 13 chapters, and that's around that area is what I work for when I write my chapter books, which is what I mostly write. And usually between 6,000, 8,000 words or so. But mostly I strive for 3 pages per chapter, because a kid told me one time that's all a chapter should have. Only 3 pages. So that's what we strive for. That's what I strive for. And so I kind of work on that structure a little bit.
And when you're outlining, do you plan cliffhangers for each chapter along the way, or does that come as you're writing, or do you always want to have a cliffhanger or something there at the end of the chapter?
Oh, I love to have cliffhangers, but I don't really plot that out or put that in my outline. I just, as I'm writing, hopefully I'll come to a place I'm like, oh, this is a great place to end the chapter.
Gotcha. What's your favorite chapter ending? Do you have one?
Oh, my favorite chapter ending. Uh, when I visit schools, I talk about the writing process with some of the particularly older kids, like fourth and fifth graders. I'll say, and her hand reached out and grabbed her. End of chapter. I don't even know if that's in one of my books or not, but I always say that when I talk about cliffhangers with kids. The hand reached out and grabbed her.
That's it. You can't possibly put that book down after that. You got to find out what happened.
And you do it quickly, and all the kids jump. So,
So when you're doing 4, 5, 6 books in a contract, when you're outlining, do you do all the outlines first, or how far ahead do you plan, or is it just one book at a time?
well, for like a series proposal, I would come up with like a little paragraph about each book that would be in the series, and like a general synopsis of kind of global of what the series would be about. So I would hopefully sell that series on just a little paragraph about what the story is about. So I wouldn't, in most cases, I wouldn't have like a full outline or anything.
And then once you get going, is it just one book at a time?
Oh, well, it's always nice if it's more than one cell at a time. Most of the time, though, it seems like for a new series, they either buy 2 or 4, and it's a lot of times just 2 to see how those do. And because, of course, if they don't sell, they're not going to buy any more.
Sure.
Yeah.
And why write 4 more books for something that people aren't reading? Not
Well,
that I'm sure you've never had that problem. I'm talking about other writers that might impact.
They don't want to pay you, of course, if it's not going to sell. So it is a business. We don't like to think of it as a business. It's an art, but it is a business. So the bottom line affects all of us.